So, I caught that new D&D movie the other day, and two things hit me at exactly the same time. One, this movie is freaking awesome. And two, it's probably going to be really bad for D&D. And you might be thinking to yourself, hey, hold up there. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves was full of great characters, awesome world building, and some really, really cool monsters. How on earth could that possibly be bad for D&D? And won't all of those factors bring brand new players to the game? Well, yeah, it will. And that's why it's bad for the game. And why is that? Well, if history has been any indication about what those new players are getting themselves checked into, they're going to show up to one game session and probably run away and never come back. Simply put, they're probably not going to get that awesome cinematic experience that they had in the movie when they show up for a live D&D session. And it's not their fault, it's ours. Now, before you get your beholders in a twist, let's look at the reasons why I'm saying this. First off, let's take a look at the action. There is a ton of great action sequences in Honor Among Thieves, and anybody who sees the section with Holga fighting off a whole gaggle of town guards might be thinking, that's what D&D is like. That's what it's all about. I'm going to get all activated here and just kick some serious booty on the streets of whatever town they're in. And that's just not going to be the case. You put that same exact encounter in the game and things get real clunky real quick. That brand new player who's so excited about those action sequences is going to get bogged down with initiative, 2-hit rolls. That fight sequence with Holga and the town guards is probably shorter than just determining initiative order in your average D&D encounter. Now, let's be honest, there's probably some people that are going to come in and experience that for the first time and say, oh my gosh, this is like Excel spreadsheet the game. I love it. I'm completely addicted. Give me more. But for some people, it's just not going to hold up. Let's be really honest with ourselves here. There are people in the world who can't even keep their attention glued to a 60-second TikTok video. Imagine what it's going to be like going around a room over and over and over as we work through a melee encounter. It's going to be pretty brutal for them, right? Okay, now we need to talk about humor for a second. You might be really funny. You might be a super good storyteller. You could even be a person who's really good at taking a new player by the hand and helping guide them through a brand new experience that could potentially turn into a hobby, right? But chances are you're not all three of those things. Humor is highly subjective, and what you and your friends find hilarious while you're slamming brews and battling bugbears might be dumb or potentially offensive to somebody who's brand new to your gamer group. It's already hard enough when they're checking out a brand new game. People are feeling a little bit nervous, and some off-color comment could be completely misinterpreted by somebody who's not used to your group dynamic. And what was funny might just fall flat, or potentially turn somebody cold on the entire process of playing role-playing games. Some of us are not really good at changing and adapting with the times. I watched a Vampire the Masquerade game group unravel in slow motion because the person who was acting as game master really didn't understand the problematic issues between vampires and consent. You really have to learn how to read a room, folks. Now, all hope isn't lost. I've seen plenty of gamer groups change as the dynamics shift and change and evolve as well. We all know how it goes. If you played this game long enough, the people that you started playing D&D with have probably moved on either to other games or other groups, or you might have even moved across the country. This is a really good place for a side note. Before you go into great, hilarious detail, doing a beat-by-beat retelling of how that paladin in your group had his Holy Avenger sword turned into a demonic weapon by a vengeful god. Think about that for a second. That story's hilarious to you and your friends because you all lived through it. Your brand new player has no idea what you're talking about. All of a sudden, that great story, that great hilarious story is an inside joke, and we all know how it feels to be left out on an inside joke. There's ways around this. We can work the narrative of how that sword got cursed into our story. We can help that new player experience and unravel that story, and that feeling of finding out why that happened is going to be so rewarding. It's also going to help shepherd them into why this joke is so funny. It's your job and the rest of your player group's job to help that new player find out and discover these things, and it's going to be so much more rewarding for them in the long run. Finally, let's talk about running the game. That D&D movie had an army of writers and a bunch of charismatic actors that brought that entire story to life. Your game group just has you and whoever was dumb enough to get suckered into running the game in the first place. And in a lot of cases, that's dummies like me that own all the books, right? A brand new player is already feeling pretty awkward. It's not easy to dive into these things head first. A brand new player doesn't have decades of experience and immersion in game settings and game situations. I've been playing D&D for almost 40 years now. I can roll with the changes. I have familiarity with all of this stuff. A brand new player is still trying to figure out what armor class means. Is your dungeon master the kind of person that is patient enough to walk a new player through a session 0 and help them create their new character? Does your dungeon master have a lot of experience and patience for new players who are going to have a whole bunch of questions that might seem kind of silly for established players? Does your DM know when to back off a little and give the story a little narrative breathing space so everybody can relax and ease into things and have a little bit of fun? And it goes so much deeper than that. Can your DM manage a group dynamic? If you have a player who's hell-bent on playing a murder hobo character, can your DM pull that person in so that everybody else can have a good time? Does your dungeon master know how to arbitrate a rules lawyer who's completely set on telling everybody what they're doing wrong and just bogging down the process in the first place? These games take hours and hours and hours to play. We don't have time for rules lawyers. Can your dungeon master control that person and help them and your new player have a good time? And most important of all, can your dungeon master help the new player and the veteran player alike come together and have a good time? Can we manage those expectations for the established player to go out there and kick some kobold butt and help the new player figure out why we have to kick those butts in the first place? The absolute worst thing I have ever experienced in my time playing role-playing games is a brand new group that got together to play Dungeons and Dragons. And the DM was completely adversarial in his mindset with the group. We had 3 brand new players and 2 veterans. The DM looked at the game as him versus the players, and he was going to win at all costs. The DM wasn't looking at this experience as a chance to help narrate and weave a story in collaboration with his players. He was going to win. He was going to kill the players. They were not going to unravel his incredibly well-crafted, laboriously, lovingly crafted dungeon. He was going to win. After 3 sessions, we'd already lost the newbies, and I sure as hell wasn't going to stick around and see where things were going. It just wasn't fun anymore. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves does an amazing job of introducing new players and veteran players alike to the Sword Coast and some great settings. Even my wife, who doesn't play D&D and hasn't spent a lot of time around it, had a little chuckle when Baldur's Gate was mentioned. She's been around it. It's part of our cultural tapestry, right? That movie set up an amazing world filled with appealing characters that might make somebody just say those magical words of, hey, I'm thinking about checking out D&D. We owe it to those people that are curious about checking out role-playing games, and to ourselves for that matter, to find a way to make those incredible possibilities teased in the movie come to life for everyone at the table. With luck, we might be able to look back on this Dungeons & Dragons movie as what it was intended to be, a gateway to a world filled with endless possibility and wonder. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I would love to hear your D&D horror stories in the comments. Make sure to roll a critical hit on that like button, and really soon, all of this content is going to be available on all of our podcast platforms as well. And we'll be back with more Geek Show Tabletop Table Talk next week. I have to find a better name for that. Take care, everybody.